Yo, 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 how's everyone doing? It's your boy, Skilled Fawn, and today we're going to be doing one of the most insane challenges in Elden Ring. So let's jump straight on into the rules. Starting off, we have Rune level 1, which is the minimum level that the player can be. This means I will have the lowest amount of HP and deal the least amount of damage. Next up is plus 0, which means I cannot upgrade any of my weapons. This is in combination with Rune level 1, which will make for an interesting challenge. After that, I cannot use Spirit Summons. Spirit Summons in Elden Ring are tools that can be used to help fight bosses and various enemies. If the player has the Spirit Bell equipped and is in an area that they can be used, then they will be able to summon additional units or players. We will not be using the Spirit Summons or NPC Summons in this run. Subsequently, I cannot use Armor. Armor is used in Elden Ring to negate physical damage and other sources. To name a few, Bleed, Frost, and Poison. The higher the player's stat for that category will result in less damage and slower status effect buildup. So, in this run, we will not be using Armor. Lastly, I have to get all 7 of the Great Runes. These are dropped by Godric, Renala, Rykard, Morgott, Radahn, Mohg, and Melania. To summarize, I will not be leveling up. I will have to start as the Wretch. I cannot level up any of my weapons, no Spirit Summons, all 7 Great Runes acquired, and lastly, no armor. This will be an interesting challenge. Now, onto the video. We're going to see Melina and get Torrent. This is useful as I can traverse around the map with ease. After talking with her a second time, we will be able to travel to the round table, which I can get rune arcs and other useful consumables. The biggest priority for me early in any run would be having access to Lindell. Gaining access there will allow me to fight Radahn and get some useful talismans. Once I have both halves of the medallion, then I will be able to pass through and get there. Eventually, I go and fight Margit, aka Morgott. Here we see that he is defending Godric, arguably the weakest of the Shard Bearers. Margit is quite easy, but his slow and staggered attacks can be tricky. After some time and with patience, we take down the first boss. And let's head on over to Godric's fight. Godric the Grafted is similar to Margit in regards to being fairly easy, but can be quite tricky at times, especially with his slow attacks. His phase 2 is unique as he grabs a dragon head and grafts it to his left arm. This is an extremely fun phase, but we do take him down and acquire our first Great Rune. Godric's Great Rune is great as it gives plus 5 stats to every attribute. This means I can be a higher level without actually leveling up. Thus, I am not breaking the rules. After some time of grinding out a bleed weapon, and I mean a lot of time, spent at least 40 plus minutes just killing this one guy over and over, and I've heard the haunted stories of other people grinding for a lot more, so luckily not as much as that. But the weapon will be great because it is similar to the weapon I was given from the start, which is the club. It has bleed buildup, which most bosses are weak to, and they can be bled. Lastly, with the low stats I have, I will actually be able to wield this weapon. I really wanted to fight Renala next, as she is quite weak and easy. Though this boss is a ranged magic user, it will be a hassle to getting close for a hit. Especially since this run is RL1+0, my damage will be extremely low. This is around the point where boss fights can be 15 plus minutes. Combine that with the fact that most things now will one-shot me or close to it. Shortly, I will get some talismans to help with that fact. That shit is starting to hit the fan. Eventually, we do take Renala down and acquire our second Great Rune. Her Great Rune is not the most useful, as I cannot switch my levels as they are the lowest amount. Next, I will try my luck with Godskin Noble. At first, I tried not using a parrying shield since I was unfamiliar with his moveset. I wasn't sure what would be the best option since I would die quite often, doing either the parrying shield or just using just my weapons. I figured that I should embrace the bleed damage that I've got, so I used the Reduvia, which has a ranged Ash of War. This is great at slowly building up Godskin Noble's bleed bar. One thing I noticed that would happen was that I would use a ton of sleep pots and I would get very little damage in. And yeah, combined with the fact that I don't have many pots in general, it was just a recipe for disaster. After many attempts and deaths, I take him down, and we're going to move on over to Rykard. Rykard, Lord of Blasphemy, is the next boss that we'll be facing off against. His first phase is quite simple, but has a few attacks that can catch a player off guard. The attack I struggled with the most is when he slams his head down and thrusts rock up from the ground. The good thing about this fight is the weapon that is given to the player. Now, I have shown in previous challenge runs that daggers, incantations, sorceries, and plenty of other ways are useful to actually take him down, but the most optimal way is using the weapon in his arena. This weapon is specifically made for taking down serpents, so yeah, we will be using this. And a great cheese for this boss, besides the weapon itself, is the Ash of War. During his second phase, he will slam his foot down, and if the animation is completed, he will send fire skulls crashing down from the sky. If he is interrupted during this animation, he will continually try to complete it, so this is a great method of stun locking him. Sooner or later, we take down another Shard Bear and acquire his Great Rune. Now, let's head further into Lendel. At the entrance to the capital, we find DTS. Draconic Tree Sentinel can be a challenging boss because 1, at this point bosses have a lot more health and deal a lot more damage, and 2, he is on a horse, which can be difficult to hit at times, and thirdly is he has many area of effect attacks. Luckily, after a few attempts, we do take him down, and we are going to head into the capital. Near the top of the capital, we find Godfrey, first Elden Lord, or at least a mirage of him. And I usually just call him Godfrey just because it's a lot funnier. This mirrored version is an early introduction to the bosses that will be faced later on. I really enjoy Godfrey's music, but more so this version. The lighter tone, in my opinion, sounds better. Now, one thing I should quickly talk about is the music in Elden Ring. In previous entries like Dark Souls 3, the music and bosses are just perfect, but in Elden Ring there are many bosses and or music that just do not slap. This is a biased opinion, obviously, but I can say most boss music is quite lackluster compared to the other Souls games. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. I do really enjoy Godfrey's, as I mentioned, Godskin Noble and Duo's music, and a few others for sure, like Melania, but yeah, all the bosses generally are pretty bad, their music. So we do take down Godfrey, and we are going to move on into Morgott. And before we get into Morgott's fight, if you guys are enjoying the video, please like, comment, and or subscribe. It would greatly help me and the channel. Whenever someone does one of the previously mentioned things, this will push out the video to more people. And lastly, hit the bell icon to be notified when I post videos, shorts, or send out community posts. Thank you for your time, and back to the video. Now that we are onto Morgott, I want to share my experiences with him. It took many attempts. I will admit that I'm not the best at Morgott, even though he's very similar to Margit's moveset. His attacks are just non-stop, which is both good and bad. After many attempts, I was able to recognize when and where I should attack. And like before, we do this at Rune level 1+0, no summons and no armor. Another Shard Bearer down, and we further the progression to acquire all the Great Runes. Let's move on to the next fight. Fire Giant is a boss, an annoying boss at that. He's one of, if not the worst bosses in the game in my opinion. His sheer size and attack range is insane. Combine that with his damage resistance in phase 2, inside his hands, is crazy high. So I die many times and decide to go a different path. Afterwards, I want to take down Mohg the Omen and Mohg Lord of Blood. I figured this would be a good idea since I'm a rush class and I could progress towards the ending for the Frenzied Flame, which is one of, if not my favorite endings. These bosses are quite similar, but Mohg, Lord of Blood, has a phase 2 that changes his moveset. I have a lot of fun with these boss fights. I should also mention that this was around the time that I started the challenge run again. As you might have noticed, the timer isn't there anymore. I actually took a break after dying to Radahn many times and picked it back up a few months later. So that's why there's no timer and the fact that I actually forgot it. If you are interested in checking out any of the streams or specific boss encounters, click the link in the description. Check out their Rune Level 1+ playlist, and it's on the VOD channel. After taking down both of these bosses, I decided to progress towards the Halig Tree to get one of the best weapons for this run. At the Halig Tree, we find Loretta. She can be fought at the Carrion Mariner also, but that fight is similar to Godfrey's fight, where there are 2 versions. After a lot of attempts, I decided to go the Reduvia route. As mentioned previously, this weapon is very good at building up bleed damage. Since my physical damage is so low in this run, I want to find another way to counterbalance it. The solution was bleed, frost, and or scarlet rot. Now, we will get the weapon, the best weapon for this run. This will be great at building up scarlet rot, a better version of poison. Now, with this weapon equipped, many of the bosses will become so much easier. Up next, I attempted Fire Giant, and dear God, did this fight take a ridiculous amount of time.
Ten years later.
After taking down the Fire Giant, we're going to set the Erdtree ablaze and head towards Farum Azula. At Farum Azula, we face arguably one of the hardest bosses in this challenge run, Godskin Duo. Many bosses thus far have been extremely difficult, but none will compare to this duo. Any duo or trio boss can be difficult. Bloodborne, I'm looking at you, but these just kept messing me up. On one stream, I spent 10+ hours just trying to get past these guys. Eventually, I decided to get good, as the kids say, and actually learn Godskin Apostle's moveset by heart. I figured out pairing timing so that I could focus on him, leaving Apostle alone. This way, I can make the fight slightly easier. The combination of Sleep, Scarlet Rot, and Bleed were great for this fight. I recommend anyone doing this challenge run to use the build I was running. After hours and hours of attempts, we take down the duo and head to Malekith, one of my favorite bosses. Kind of funny, but I actually forgot to record the fight between Malekith. I was streaming the fight, but I actually didn't click the record button. Kind of silly, but I did post the stream and boss fight on the VOD channel, so check that out if you're interested. Instead, we will head into Sir Gideon's fight. If you have been watching my videos and been on this channel for a while, you'll know the spiel I'm about to rant about. I despise Fire Giant and Sir Gideon. Sir Gideon has been especially difficult for many of my challenge runs, like my bows only run. This run was, thankfully we got past him and he wasn't the hardest fight, but let's head into Godfrey's. These late game bosses are some of my favorite fights in Elden Ring. Godfrey, Melania, Moog, Malekith, and Radon are my favorite fights in this game, especially since many of these bosses are regarded as some of the most difficult in the game. They're extremely satisfying to take down. It's also an added bonus that the boss's music slaps. Oh my gosh. Godfrey can be very difficult because his phase 2 just has so many grab attacks that one-shot you. Since I'm RL1, there's no way I'd be able to survive that shit. So let's play the patient / safe route. Once again, Reduvius spam for the win, and after taking down Godfrey, we will fight my favorite and the hardest boss in the game. Melania, Blade of Mikola, has to hands down be the best boss in this game, and I'd argue in all of the Souls games. She tests the player's skill and awareness more than most bosses. Obviously, your playstyle will determine the difficulty. For example, if you spam Moog's Spear with a Mimic tier, then yeah, it will be easy. I highly recommend that you try to fight her solo, especially since she is a great practice for the DLC, as bosses will hit hard, have a lot of health, and essentially, basically, on her level. Not, slightly harder. I have a tremendous amount of experience with Melania. I am thankful but also troubled by how good I've gotten at her and used to her attacks. In my early challenge runs, I was always determined to flawless her, which means not taking damage during the fight. Now, I'm still human and make mistakes sometimes, so I will die occasionally or get hit, but this boss fight I'm the most confident with. After some time of strategizing my playstyle, I decided to use the Frost Axe with the Bleed weapon. These two in synergy will allow me to get great damage from their status effects. I found that using the axe to get a Frost proc and then after a Bleed proc will usually deal enough damage for her Waterfowl to be used. When Melania is dealt a certain amount of damage, she will start to use her Waterfowl attack. I generally go by like a 4th to a 3rd damage dealt, you will start to use it. Her first phase is quite slow and not the most difficult, but phase 2 is where things get interesting. In the sense that, dear Lord, have mercy on my soul. Her second phase is extremely aggressive and has so many attacks that will one-shot even on a normal run. So yeah, a lot of pain. Thankfully, I have memorized her attacks well enough to dodge them, so yeah, we take down the hardest boss in the game. Now, on to the final battle. If you did make it this far, thank you for sticking with me, and hopefully you learned something new along the way. I find that each time I play Elden Ring, I learn a lot of new areas, or something I didn't know before. Anyways, I died more times than I care to admit to Radagon and Elden Beast. And yeah, we'll just keep that a secret. This fight was challenging because I had to manage my heals and FP flasks. I knew beforehand that most, if not all, the weapons I used previously would be ineffective against these two, since most status effects don't work on Radagon, and none work on Elden Beast. The saving grace for this fight was that Radagon is able to be frosted, though it takes a crap ton of time, and Elden Beast's arena is in water, so extra lightning damage. Though these things are minor things to be excited about, there are a few pros to the many cons fighting against me in this run. With lots of patience and strategy, I learned the boss's moveset very well, where I'm taking minimal hits, though I'm still getting smacked. I am thankful to have the physical damage reduction talisman and the ritual shield talisman for increased defense. These are great talismans for late game. One thing that haunted me in this fight was Elden Beast's Elden Stars attack. This is an incantation that slowly sends a tracking orb of light that splinters off into other projectiles. For me, this is almost impossible to dodge, and one thing I dread in a no-hit run, which I will eventually complete. After many attempts of blood, sweat, and tears, we take down Radagon and Elden Beast. And yeah, this is Elden Ring, Rune level 1, no weapon upgrades, no spirit summons, no armor, and all great runes acquired. I greatly appreciate everyone that came and checked out this video. Now, I want to talk about a few things, such as upcoming challenge runs, reviews, and other things on my mind. I will be posting more Elden Ring content soon, so expect that. Specifically, we have no status effect, dex only, int only, and worse weapon only runs. These will be spread out over the next month or two. After that, we have Need for Speed Most Wanted Nuzlocke. I know a lot of you guys enjoyed the Carbon and Most Wanted stock car runs. Another topic is that we have Liza P and Sekiro runs. I started playing through Liza P for the first time since the demo. Depending on when this video releases, my review of Liza P will be out. I highly recommend you checking this out and playing the game. For Sekiro, there is a new game plus 7 and no death run coming soon. Currently, as I'm recording this, I'm going through no death, which has been quite the challenge. Lastly, I wanted to talk about a criticism I've seen on the channel. A complaint I have seen on my runs is that I say a lot of filler words. And so I wanted to try and make a script to see how well it is received. In my opinion, scripts often will sound better but aren't as genuine as talking on the fly, as my opinions and stuff aren't sugar-coated. I'm not explaining this the best, but I hope you get my point. I definitely do see the benefit of doing scripts as it makes things more professional and I can say whatever I want beforehand. But let me know what you guys think. Your thoughts down below. Do you enjoy this type of content style? Or do you prefer videos on the fly like my previous entries? I'm curious to hear your feedback and responses. I greatly appreciate you guys. I'm extremely thankful for the support and comments that you guys give me. I love reading through your things and connecting with everyone. If you are able to try and do something kind for someone today, please do it. And yeah, this is your boy Skilled Fawn, and I'm out.